So BK, so what's your role at Zynga?
Okay, can everyone hear me okay? Cool. So I'm president of publishing at Zynga. I think somebody mentioned earlier that, that our turnaround is complete. It's been very, very exciting joining Zynga at the time that I joined. What's fun about Zynga is the main reason why I joined, just to be honest with everyone here, is because I got a phone call from Frank Gibeau, and he called me, and he had just taken this job as CEO at Zynga, and he thought it would be a really exciting time to join the company. And to be honest, I had spent 10 years at a previous company, and part of our, like what woke me up every single day was to get that competitive juice going around, like, okay, who are we gonna go after in the marketplace? Who do we aspire to be? And Zynga was one of those companies. I personally loved Farmville. I mean, it was one of my favorite games. It was actually launched at the exact time that I had my daughter, Chloe. And it's a social game, but it's also a super competitive game. So like when you set up Farmville, you want to pimp out your farm so it's better than your competition. Or you can advance further, get through level 30 faster than anyone else. And so my advantage was primarily my daughter woke up every 3 hours. And every single time she woke up, I would immediately grab her, run into my office, and have one hand holding my daughter, rocking her while I was kind of grinding my farm, making sure that my crops were alive. And my wife, it was like a total win-win, because it hit my fix about gaming. But then my wife was like super ecstatic. She was like, "Oh my God, this guy's like a great husband. Like, what a great caretaker!" Because like he's immediately grabbing my daughter even before I can. And so it was really incredible. And you know, our goal was, okay, how do we compete with Zynga? How do we have fun in this space? How do we be part of this emerging platform, which is social gaming? When Frank did call me, I thought to myself, hey, you know, this is an interesting time potentially to join Zynga. But one thing I knew about Frank was, you know, having worked with him for 10 years, he was really great at putting together the right squad and the right team. Like an example would be like in Empires and Puzzles, which is a game that we all play a lot of. It's all about setting up the right squad for the right battle. And you have these team members and people that kind of help each other. One of them's playing heavy offense, the other one's a healer, one of them's like heavy into defense and a strong buff. And that's what I knew about Frank, is he's able to put together a winning team, and then we have that competitive energy to go at it. So my role at the company is president of publishing. I think like a publisher is like a Barnes and Noble. I don't even actually know what that term means, but it's something that we kind of concocted around the business side of the company, which is like sales, revenue, marketing, ad monetization, paid acquisition, communications, like M&A is one of those responsibilities. So that kind of rolls into my team. But the company is run primarily like a really amazing RPG where everyone has their skill and they're set to go after this business. And we're very, very driven around competitive energy. So that's what's been really, really fun. So that's my long answer of what my responsibility is at the company, but it's kind of all things business.
Very cool, very cool. So you said turnaround and complete, you're now in the growth mode. What does that mean?
So, I mean, I think for those of us that listened to Frank and Jared's last earnings call, he made a big statement in the marketplace that says the turnaround is complete. And you know, the way that I view that comment is like, this is where the real fun begins. Okay. This is when we could start thinking about growth. This is where we could start thinking about you know, the process that we're going through around catalyzing the organization around a growth phase of the business. And you know, when we started in the organization about 3 years ago, and I'm coming up on my three-year anniversary. It actually seems longer than that, but we focus on 4 major areas. And actually, in our first board meeting, this is something that we presented to the board. And those 4 major pillars are live services and this coined phrase that we came up with called forever franchises. Mm-hmm. The other part of that is launching and establishing great games centered around big intellectual property. I think you know, we've been out in the marketplace announcing some big killer intellectual property, both our own as well as licensed properties. We've looked at 10x ideas, like, you know, how do we become on the forefront of higher risk value propositions and new platforms where we can bring great gaming to the masses. And then the fourth area, which we're going to spend some time on, which is M&A. We actually see that as a big growth catalyst for the company and something that we focused on. So those are the kind of four major areas that we focused on as a business. And as we kind of focused the organization, and I kind of made that RPG analysis, one of the things that we did in the company is, I'd say like Zynga had a tremendous amount of talented people, and over the last 10 years, Zynga has built amazing teams. I think for us, it was keeping folks focused on kind of four major goals, and then understanding their positions on the field and going after it in a big way. So I think it's a big statement for Zynga to say the turnaround is complete. More so that we can kind of stop talking about that term, the turnaround, and we can now start talking about growth and how do we become one of the big boys in the marketplace.
Awesome. M&A has been a key driver. I think you spent more than $1 billion in enterprise value for the last 18 months.
Yes,
How have those,
a lot of money.
Yeah, how have those deals gone after you bought them?
Well, I would say when it comes to Zynga as the DNA of the organization, something that's very exciting about the company is that we have a tremendous amount of brilliant product managers that can look at the analysis of day one retention and then do like a full model around where we think that player journey is going to be over time, and that leads to 100-day retention, 365-day retention. So that's something that we loved about the organization. When it came to analysis, the company did an incredible job in the marketplace. One thing about this management team joining, and you and I, Michael, we spoke about this, is at our core, we're all hardcore gamers. Right. And we love games. And so we wanted to make sure that when it came to the games and the live beats that Zynga was producing in the marketplace, that we were focused on games that were going to be very, very fun for a very long time, hence this term forever franchise. Mm-hmm. So is this a feature? Is this a game that somebody can play for 1 year of their life or 10 years of their life? It could be part of their daily ritual. So that's something that we thought was really, really fun. When it came to looking at the M&A landscape, there was there's a lot of really interesting targets out there, but primarily we focused on games that we thought, wow, this is a game that I personally love. This is a game that I can see myself playing for 10 years. I can see myself teaching my son how to min-max merge dragons. These are real-world things that happened, and then at the same time, bringing that sensibility of some very, very smart people within Zynga that says, okay, here's the math that can prove that this can be a forever franchise. So kind of bringing those two things together and then going after a space where we have a significant amount of cash and capital to use at will. So that's why we brought those things together and then we went out in the marketplace. Now the toughest part has really been making sure that these founders and these creators of these forever franchises felt comfortable in their potential future home within Zynga. And so that's one thing that we spent a lot of time talking about, what the culture was like, how the culture is today, how there's maybe some misperceptions about Zynga in the marketplace, but that they can come into an organization and see their franchises thrive. Mm-hmm. And in a case of Zynga, we generally do not go in and say, hey, we know how to do it. This is how we've done it for 10 years. This is the right way to do things. We've taken a very humble approach and said, hey, here's a dashboard of services. These are the ones I think are good, and these are the ones that I think need improvement. You tell me how we can help you. And so we've taken an approach of very, very passive. They come on board. They feel like they're in a great home, and then we could potentially see these franchises thrive over time post-acquisition.
And you're happy with the performance so far?
We are in a quiet period as a company, so I can generally monitor my own happiness with I'm not a great poker player, but I would say that one thing that I do every single day when I wake up, and I've been doing this I think some of the people here in this audience I've worked with in the past. I've been doing this for the last, you know, decade of my life. Since the App Store launched, I go into top grossing every single morning, and that's like our scoreboard. Like, we're so lucky to work in a business, especially if you're in mobile, to see a daily ticker of like how your games and how your franchises are performing. And you know, of course, we want the entire space to do well, but you know, the more games that we have in top grossing, I think the better position that Zynga is in, and the total company is. So you know, I generally get very excited when you know, during a certain weekend there's, you know, really great performance in specific games. That gets me pretty pumped up.
Very cool. So as you're now in the growth mode, it means you're going to double down on M&A. What kind of stuff is interesting for 2019? Are you looking at certain genres? Is it like you want to add additional forever franchises, meaning, you know, games that can do at least 100 million, or what's most interesting?
Well, I mean, you know, it's one of these. You know, I've actually, like, as I'm looking at our topic, and I actually don't even know who created this whole thing of like eat or be eaten, but I like that. I like that on a branding perspective. And I'm going to do another horrible games analogy, but there's a game called Slither.io, which the entire Kim family was addicted to. We were like psychotically competitive with one another. And for those of you that don't know it, you kind of start with this like worm, and you're small, and then you're nimble, and then you're kind of either eating smaller worms, or you're going after the big dog and you try to take them out. And you know, the thing that was so interesting about this game for me and my family is like when you're small, it's like super, super fun. But then when you're really big and you're at like a 60,000 score, like that's kind of my high score if anyone wants to take that down, on the social side, not solo, it's like really fun. Like you're really big, and then you're trying to like figure out how to maneuver this big thing. I always found that like in between those two phases in this game, it wasn't that fun. So I think for Zynga, it's like, you know, when I joined the company, we were, and we still are, in that middle range of Slither.io.
Right.
So it's like, you know, our goal is to go and consume potentially more to become bigger, so it becomes really fun, and we have a lot of games in top grossing. One thing about Zynga that is, you know, I think great, but I think is also, you know, can be challenging, is the diversity of our products. I mean, we have a top driving game in the marketplace. We have a top Words with Friends game. We have, you know, a slots portfolio. We have, you know, one of the top RPG games in the marketplace now. So, like, when it comes to diversity, I think the company is very, very exciting. And what that means for us on an M&A perspective is, like, I'm not specifically looking at a certain genre or a type of game. I think we're versatile to a lot of different games, as long as we think that these games or franchises or platforms can blossom into, you know, what we call this forever franchise. That's the end goal, and Zynga has a bunch of them. I feel like we have more than others, and hopefully we'll continue to grow those forever franchises.
Talking about consolidation, it felt like the last 1.5, 2 years, more and more activity, valuations keep on going up, which for me is not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's great for your business.
What's the view on, you know, your outlook on further consolidation, valuation? Where do you see the whole gaming industry going over the next year or two?
I mean, you know, I think today has been a really exciting day to kind of hear other speakers on stage. And when you hear something like Stadia, that's really fantastic, because it's introducing gaming to a broader audience. So the whole, like, you know, I look at my life and my background as more a gamer than like a games executive or somebody that works in the games industry. Like you and I were talking about this yesterday over coffee, but you know, like since I was 10 years old, I've averaged 2 hours of video games every single day of my life. I've never missed a day for, I guess, 32 years. It's been part of my life. And you know, if you were to kind of say, okay, you're not allowed to drink Diet Coke or you can't eat meat for a couple weeks, I'm generally like okay with that. Even if like, you know, you can only sleep 2 hours a day, I think I could manage. But if like my wife had told me, and this actually did happen, like for 10 days you're not allowed to play any games, I'd probably say like, okay, I'm gonna wait till you fall asleep, sneak out of bed, and then like, you know, jump into a gaming experience. So, you know, when it comes to the valuations of smaller companies or publicly traded companies like Zynga or, you know, Google that's now jumping into games like head first, that's really, really exciting to me. This is what I believe is the main form of entertainment today and in the future. I mean, this is a staple of what we do. I look at, you know, I'm gonna bring up my son all the time, but you know, I look at the way that he consumes games and the way that he spends his time in a game experience outside of even playing. I believe that this is the future.
Very cool. So you're a launch partner of Snap Games, and I think the name of the game is Tiny Royale. So I guess 2 questions. What's your thought on the, you know, Snap gaming platform, and then tell us a little bit more about the new game.
Well, you know, I kind of mentioned one of our pillars being 10x ideas, and you know, this is the part of the organization that can take a tremendous amount of risk and look at platforms that potentially might not be thought of as a traditional gaming platform. And you know, when it came to the original mission of Zynga, which we still love today, which is connecting the world through games, which platforms in the market already have that amazing social liquidity where you and I are chatting over Messenger or Snap? We're already in an engaging experience with regards to having fantastic conversations back and forth. But what do you think would make our conversation less boring? And like, you know, I personally believe it could be watching a movie together, it could be going and grabbing coffee in person, but really the best thing for us to do that's gonna solidify our relationship is playing a game together. Okay. And so have it be, if we're, you know, gonna play a competitive game of Words with Friends that starts off as like, you know, really casual, and then we're like battling it out every single day, right, to like, hey, let's like pick up guns and jump into a fast, frenetic experience where we're on a squad together and winner take all. That could be also something that's really fun. So we're always really open to ideas where we can bring interactive entertainment and bring it to audiences where they're already connecting. Like, you know, we look at some of these opportunities in a different lens of enhancing relationships, which is part of what we want to do. This is like my other life hack that I've figured out is, you know, in these 2 hours of gaming a day, I've focused my gaming in those 2 hours to be something that I can pick up really quickly. So if there's like a lull in conversation, or you guys are sitting in here and this talk is really boring, you might want to pull out your phone and play a quick game of Words with Friends. I do not mind. but like figure out that passion for games and then lead it into something that can enhance a relationship. And the way that I enhance my relationships is primarily like, you know, I'm gonna play someone in Words with Friends, and usually they'll beat up on me and I'll be very humble. But then in other games, I'm playing to win. So people will understand that, you know, this person is very competitive, he doesn't want to spend money, he wants to win the right way, all these different things. And it's kind of bringing together social activity and games. And you know, that's why this theme of this entire summit is so exciting, because this would never have been a theme 10 years ago. And so I think that's one of the things, because I'm assuming everyone here in this room is an addicted gamer, because you wouldn't probably be in this industry if you weren't. Figure out ways to bring your relationships into that gaming experience.
Tell us more about Tiny Royale. What is it? Why should people try it?
Tiny Royale is like a very fast, frenetic experience where imagine you jump into a chat with someone and then you jump into a gameplay experience where you can pick a place on a battlefield parachute in, and then you're fighting as the world gets smaller and smaller. But it's 30 people on a battlefield, so it's really casual, and it's not as long as the other experiences in the marketplace. But it's it's super fun and easy to get into, and you can customize your character.
Very cool.
We view this as like a engagement play, and how do we go after an audience that's in Snap that might not be potentially playing games.
Right.
The thing that I do like about Snapchat, and I went to the summit a couple weeks ago. I think I saw you there. It's just like a very exciting environment with like a new demographic that I think is really, really exciting for a company like Zynga.
Yeah, very cool. Talking about casual, fast games. What's your thought on the hyper-casual segment? Is that a segment where you're also looking to double down, or what's the thinking there?
Well, Zynga over the last 10 years has built one of what I believe is one of the strongest ad networks within games. It's kind of hidden a little bit under the radar, but we have a pretty resilient and strong business in driving ad experiences within our games. Hyper casual also is centered around an ad experience and cross network, and some of the things that are core to Zynga's beliefs with regards to driving a thriving publishing platform. I'll be honest with you. I kind of surround myself with a lot of gamers. My closest friends, as well as my family, we're constantly playing games. My daughter is kind of like the voodoo expert. She knows all the best games. She kind of figures out the best ways to get the best scores. And sometimes I get annoyed because she's not playing Zynga games. but then I get very proud of her because her Helix jump skills are spectacular. Like she could be in the Olympics. So there's obviously something that's happening there, and it's something that we're exploring and we're really interested in. But how do we deliver experiences that are for all different types of gamers? Like the Stadia experience is going to be very different than CSR versus Words with Friends or a Voodoo experience. So I look at those as really kind of fun, quick. Try and then move on and potentially get really into a certain game, like in a Voodoo game. But it's like there's kind of no frills. You jump in and then you could jump out with not a lot of guilt. I'd say hopefully if you're playing a Zynga game, we want you for life. Like we want this to be part of your daily ritual, your experience. Like when I wake up every morning. I look at my camp in Merge Dragons. Like that's the first thing that I do, at least recently, when I get out of bed. I look at my experience and I see what kind of chaos happened the night before, and then I go and try to clean it up. That's my Zen moment. But I could see myself doing that for years, and that's what we want. But I'd say hyper casual is something that we're interested in, we're exploring, and it's something that I actually do not think is going to go away.
Very cool. Thank you for doing this.
Cool.
Very interesting. Give him a hand.